So one of the things that I was asked to put together and did this last week with the admin team is we went through, I sent out information to them and asked them what the comfortable capacity or functional capacity would be at all of the elementary schools, with the thought of moving back to K-5 with building number 7, which would be the current middle school, if the board decided to move the 6th grade to the junior high school, have 6th and 7th there, and move 8th grade to the freshman campus and have 8th grade there, and have 9th through 12th grade at the high school building right here. So one of the things as an admin team, we all were there, and we wanted to make this as simple as possible. So what we did was we put, the class size in the contract is 21 for kindergarten, 22 for first, 23 for second, 25 for third, 26 for fourth, and I went ahead and put 26 for fifth as well. There's no, it's middle school, but I just put 26. Schools would have would also have to have room for Title Lab, special ed rooms as assigned. Basic ed classroom track. So for each classroom track, each set of K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, each 6 is 143 students based on those classroom counts, okay? So if you're a 2-track school, you're 286 students capacity. If you're a 3-track school, you're 429 capacity. So, it just works that way. So we took Tanum, Cottonwood, and White Hollow as 3-track schools. We took Apple Valley, Mountain View, Summit View as 2-track schools, and building number 7 would be a 4-track school with 24 classrooms. The K-5 district capacity at that point would be proposed 114 classrooms, 2,717 students. We currently have 1,982 students in grades K-4. We have 2,396 students in K-5. So you'd have room for 320 more students there in K-5 if you went to that. Secondary, the CBA has the following class size limits. Middle school, 29 students. Junior high school, 31 students. Freshman campus high school, 32 students. Rick, you want to come here, please? There's some extras. People are looking on at that.
Can we not count
that? So the junior high has 34 classrooms. So based on the 31 students, you're around 1,054. Trouble is, you got the infrastructure's poor, but 4, 5, 6 bathrooms, period. The whole junior high, 2 on each end. Okay. Freshman campus has 20 classrooms. So if you use 20 times 30-some kids, it's 640 students. Then you got the high school building right here. Ben said there are 58 classrooms. Does not count gyms, weight room, wrestling room, wood shop, welding shop, machine shop, or shooting range. 58 times 32 is around 1,740. That's every classroom, every period, maximum number of students. Doesn't always work out that way though, okay? So then we looked at all those numbers as far as capacity goes. And then we thought, well, okay, what are the additional things that would have to be considered as well? So we had a real good session, brainstorming session. I want the board to know, thank you, Rick. You can pass that to somebody else. Oh, this was something else, yeah, you're right. So one of the things, it was very positive, but very upbeat. We approached this from the perspective as we were given direction. Hey, I want you to take a positive look at this. I just don't want a bunch of complaining and everything. So we did it from a very positive vein. We did it from, hey, if we have to do this, we need to know how we would do this. Could we do it? We have to rule this out. If we can't do it, we need to rule it out. If we can do it, it has to be a possibility. So we looked at these considerations. Number 1 is staffing. 2 is elementary attendance areas. Okay, if this is something that is going to be pursued, I then have to get April to start to put this many kids, do whatever she has to do with the boundaries to get roughly that many kids in each of those schools. Relocation costs, teachers, IT, materials, etc. So anytime you move, one of the things, if you want to get IT excited, tell them you're going to move a bunch of teachers around. Because every IP address, every phone is got to be completely switched around. Activities and athletics. You would have 8th grade still having to go back down to the junior high. You'd have to have high school going to the freshman campus, things like that. These are things that can be done. DLC preschool. We kind of thought that what we would do is preliminarily, yeah, that's a word, preliminarily. We thought we would move them to building number 7 down there. We'd have, it's an elementary school, the middle school is an elementary school. We would have room down there because we would not want to move, we would want to have a little space left at a tandem. But we would not want to move anybody anywhere near the freshman campus. It's not developmentally age appropriate to the freshman campus. The best thing to do is keep the freshman campus in high school. You might even have to have some high school classes on the western rooms of the freshman campus because of the size it would take to get this done. Talked about, do we want to get all this out there and get all this upheaval in the wind when we got to pass a levy in February of 2018? We talked about 5th and 8th grade band. We would have to have people go out around to the buildings and teach band. I think it used to be done before. It doesn't mean it couldn't be done again. You'd have specialists needed for special programs. You wouldn't know all these kind of things till your numbers all played themselves out per building. Is a building going to be a title qualified building or not? Is it going to be what percentage of kids are there based on, you'd have to find all that stuff out. There's been discussions about the size and cost, about a CTE building back here, what the size and cost of that would be. Busing and transportation is a major thing. Admin configuration can be figured out. You'd have to have a playground down there. It'd be expensive. You'd have to have 2 like big toys or, I don't want to, what did Angela say the price was?
She said 100 grand.
I know it.
Well, she said 50, and then we said, man, that seems
Seems
low.
cheap.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, but you're gonna have to fence it.
You're gonna have to fence it in, you're gonna have to, it's a lot of considerations. 8th grade pre-engineering lab, you know, the 8th grade kids are gonna put a lot of work into that. I mean, I know I was in school once and did a lot of work like that and then moved on and somebody else uses it anyway. But you can think about how we would use that. How many years will this last, looking at this capacity? You've got naming the facilities and signage, are just those considerations. We got a lot.
We decided the name of the 7th elementary school.
Yeah, we have.
We did last week.
I know, I told him the same thing. So anyway, then we look back, what are the current recommendations? We wouldn't have to do that, number 1, the Apple Valley, we can cross that one off. We might still do the Summit View Boiler Room, it doesn't really good to keep it the way it is. We would not locate the special needs preschool to the freshman campus. We would, we may or may not, all the boundary things would be dependent upon whatever April comes up with. Wouldn't have to really purchase the portable for Summit View in all likelihood, because we're going to limit the capacity there to 2 tracks, 286 kids. We don't need a portable. So, and then these additions, those would be down the road. We did all that. There's more considerations, and it's a discussion item, so you can discuss. And there's a lot of participants that were at that meeting that are here tonight. So I don't know if the board, what you thought when you saw those numbers, when you saw that page. But you can see that the capacity in this district is here, and the freshman campus is a lot. So,
Well, in order to get the 9th graders all at the high school, you would have to move the CTE somewhere else because there's not enough room. There's room for 85% right now, but not room for the total 9th grade. And that's what you mentioned was some kind of housing for CTE.
Yeah,
Tim,
Tim, because you weren't here at the last one, right? Had pulled out either, was that a new rendering or an older rendering?
older rendering, we talked about it before.
Yeah, the steel buildings.
With concrete floors right out here,
Yeah,
at softball fields.
which would be dedicated to that use. That has its own cost, associated with it. but a relatively short timeline, if not 18, 19, then 19, 20 for sure. And play damage control if we had to during 18, 19. Yeah, so that's how that would be addressed.
And it still doesn't address all the needs we have for CTE projects, even if we put that building up. That was one of the main ones.
That's one of the
Yeah,
reasons we
We
talked
could
about
end up with
classrooms on the west. end,
potentially
freshman
two
campus would stay in
classes in
classes.
the CTE building on the west end of it.
Right.
And it doesn't begin to address the number of students that are being taught in CTE classrooms here at the high school today.
Right. But you could consider building it in such a manner that it could be expandable as years go on, if there's a large enough footprint for it to go up to.
And I don't remember that, Jeff, about,
I just
you
made
know,
it.
whether the footprint allow that or not.
You may be able to keep, like I said, those classrooms, Dave, on the west end of the freshman campus. You might be able to keep those still for high school classes, see?
Right.
Might have to, because you have 15, you need room for 15 teachers, I think Ben said down here. There's not room for 15 additional teachers here to have their own, you know, but, I mean, people would move around, you'd get it all figured out. So you may have to use those rooms at the end of the west wing of the, what would be the 8th grade campus. Because this could, it would take a while. If you're gonna have a planned timeline dependent upon having that CTE building, that's one thing. If you're gonna have a plan exclusive of that, then that's another thing. One of the major things, and I see Randy left, is the moment this is decided, it throws everybody who's probably in a 3-track school, who is the 3rd person in seniority at that grade level, they go into this pool of where they're gonna end up. And so you would have to get this thing started in order to get this finished, this late spring. You'd have to get this started a little later than I'm guessing around February. You'd have to say, we're doing this.
Right, that was the idea behind the timeline, was to
Timeline.
give us the information to come in so that it was finished. We had enough information to make a decision by then. So I'm curious if we don't kill too much time. I'm a real feedback kind of guy, so I'm really interested. I appreciate the additional considerations, which are all great. I'm curious about gut reaction from other administrators in the building.
Go, you guys go. We had a good time, a good meeting last Friday.
I mean, good, bad, ugly. I mean, okay, then I'll give you 2 cents of mine while you sit there and stare at me. I like, it feels to me, and I'll take this home and look at the math again and all these numbers, but it feels to me that, I mean, we are creating space. It may not be in all the right places, but it looks like there are gonna be more seats. And it utilizes facilities that we already have, that the facility committee had in some manner asked us to do. So on the surface, with the information I have now, I still think, yes, we should have a timeline that lets us look at this. What do you guys think?
Go.
You know, we've presented 2 administrative proposals. We've had a committee look at facilities. There's good proposals in there. This one seems, especially with the timeline even now, and with all the considerations that are listed there, it doesn't seem viable. That's my gut.
Okay. Strictly on timeline?
Strictly on timeline partially, but also just, you know, there's been 2 administrative recommendations. There's a 40-some page document that the facilities committee has put together. There's lots of information out there, but I don't think this is the plan.
Okay.
But that's my gut. And
That's
having
what
read what they've done, having had lots of discussions, that's just me being honest.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, I'm confused. I thought I read in the facilities report that they were advocating for a 7th elementary school.
They have a 10-year plan, right, Ryan?
Yeah, the facilities committee is a visioning document. I mean, back to Mr. Smith's first question. I don't think anyone on the facilities committee would have expected the board to make a decision that would change your school boundaries or organizations for next year. So frankly, first time I've seen the numbers also here, I haven't asked the question myself. I've actually run my own numbers on the backside without any input from the district. because I wanted to know how stuff would fit. So this may be the right plan. Initially, I'm just uncomfortable because I haven't had time to understand what's there.
Yeah,
And as I said last time, I apologize, you know, I wanted to be at last, I didn't realize the last meeting was happening, otherwise I would have, you know, left the kitchen table with my cup of coffee earlier.
right. And Rick, not to defend or try and change your mind, the thought process on this shorter timeline was not spending money for portables, which are just temporary housing, spending that money to wait and see what we're gonna do, and then changing boundaries again and again and again as we problem solve. That's part of the rationale behind a quicker timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, not to, like I said, not trying to change your mind.
No.
That's where the thought,
Yeah, no, I understand the thought process for sure.
yeah.
And, you know, and I think it's a tough puzzle, you know, if I had the perfect answer, I'd present the perfect answer.
So are you saying that it's not viable under any circumstance, or is it not viable next school year or the following school year?
I would say it's not viable next school year, and there would have to be several versions, I'm sure, to get to what would be the best plan.
So I hesitate to talk because I know I'm not objective about this, just because it's pretty close to me. But I don't, I guess, I agree a lot with what Rick's saying. I see that timeline for next year being, we had, I mean, I think that was at all of the uniforms last year. I mean, we struggled with just a small redistricting. We're looking at a huge redistricting. I mean, we're gonna affect every elementary school to do this.
Yes.
On a large scale. And that's just students, not to mention the legalities of moving staffing around and making sure that I have people in areas, or all of us have people in areas that have certificates and can teach those areas, so I mean, that gets down the door, and that would be like when we end up finalizing that process. So I see the timeline for next year being unrealistic if we want to put out a product that we can be proud of. And so that's tough for me. And then the other part of that too that I struggle with, I mean, I don't disagree with the 7th Elementary. I disagree with the symmetry of one huge elementary versus these other neighborhood elementaries. And I know that it would be a new neighborhood elementary, but it wouldn't be comparable size to the ones around it. And it's a neighborhood elementary that's 2 long blocks from White Hollow. So I don't think we're really. You know, I felt like this district has, I know we've committed to having neighborhood elementaries, and I get the logic behind that. And this, I think, would get away from that on some kind of level. It'd be a tough sell, like, if you were still, I mean, what would we offer at this huge elementary that maybe a neighborhood elementary like Apple Valley would have?
But that's predicated on us, you know, building another elementary or getting a vote that gives us the money to build a 550-seat school, right?
If we were to get a 7th elementary and keep the current configuration.
Well, yeah, or, no, just, you know, to have, you know, say some of you does become a 550 student school, that helps alleviate the problem, but part of the argument last week was we can't sit around and keep holding our breath, hoping for better.
Right, no.
And you were there for that meeting.
Right, yeah, no, I agree.
So, and then just to address the massive reboundary, I mean, if we buy ourselves more than a year and a half out of this plan, then we don't have to be reboundary again, you know, for a while. If it can be done correctly, would be the rationale behind it.
Yeah, I was wondering how that would look, and then just a question, like, so say we reboundary, and we do create some capacity, some room for capacity at other elementaries. I see though, sooner or later, all the overflow coming to the middle school, which would be the new elementary, because they would, those other elementaries, we know that even if we're buying time at those, they're still pretty full. And so all the new, I mean, are we gonna, I mean, we have the same conversation another year, each new development is that the spot with the room is gonna be that new 7th elementary.
Right.
Well, that would probably play itself out in where the actual lines are drawn.
Right, hopefully you could, right.
I mean, April would have, April and the administrative team would have, I mean, that would, in theory, play itself out based upon the best information that we have right now as to, I mean, at least from my perspective, it would play itself out based upon where we know the developments are
Right, we take those projections and.
happening right now.
Well, I can see with building number 7, 572 kids, you've got 800 kids right now. So you have a lot of room, but I can see your concern that anybody that comes in can end up in the middle school.
Well, you don't want, you're probably that special needs preschool there, or you'd have some other
Yeah,
things.
those
you
things
can-
would get filled up. We've also, just cut you off, Mike, but one of the other conversations was some just simple office space for administrative, you know, those offices could be housed there, so. And I'm not saying this like in defense of this, I'm also thinking out loud with you, you know what I mean? Because you guys both make good points.
So last spring, the proposal, the administrative proposal was 6 boundary lines, 178 kids impacted. That's what that was. The other one that we did was 2 boundary areas, 72 kids impacted. This one would impact almost every single elementary kid somehow. Because what April will have to do is, his first job she'll have to do is fill up the 572, 600 students at the elementary that has no neighborhoods around it, really, to speak of. I mean, a few, you know, toward Mead in there and stuff like that, but other than that, she would start filling them up. And so what that's gonna do is hollow out that whole center part of the district, and everybody on the boundaries of the schools they're going to will go there. And, you know, I mean, you're gonna have kids going to Mountain View, still going to Mountain View. You're gonna have, you know, it's not gonna impact a lot. And because you have all these schools in the same general area, why, you guys know all this, I don't need to tell you, that it's gonna be a more dramatic impact on those schools. So,
But I understand where Russ is coming from too, and that all the developments, future developments, even if we make all these moves,
they're gonna go there, yeah.
that's the melting pot of the district, is that middle campus. Those kids are all gonna show up there
Mhm.
as we progress through, whether it's 2-track, 3-track, or whatever. He's gonna get them.
It starts out at 4, and we'll end up moving to
And
5,
if we
pretty good.
move the big elementary in there, that's gonna put him at capacity from the get-go,
Yeah.
without room for these other kids.
So one of the arguments I heard about last spring about the redistricting was, and it made sense, is that if we redistrict, that, the plan from last spring would cause some backfill, so some kids would have to go, does that make sense? Like they were redistricting, they were going to a different school, not necessarily, I'm not sure it made sense on that.
Shuffling kids.
Yeah, shuffling kids between buildings, right.
Oh, yeah.
But, and like if we move forward with this plan right here, we're still gonna have that, but on a much grander scale. Because in order to equalize those numbers throughout the district, we're gonna have to do it in every, I think, I don't know, but it seems like we would have to affect every
Yeah.
spot.
And I think that's something is, if we have a timeline to look at this, we can ask April when she's not driving the bus to, give a mock-up of what it.
Oh, yeah,
look like.
if you want us to go forward
Yeah.
and continue moving along, or look at more and more, that's the next conversation.
So,
So just really quick again, April does a phenomenal job as a transportation director. I've said it a couple times before. Whenever the district gets to a point of actually having a boundary evaluation, we need to go get people who map things for their profession. And Yakima County, and their GIS department has the right services in order to do that. They've got the abilities to automate that, they've got the abilities to produce maps that make a lot of sense, they're just visually useful.
I think that's worthwhile, but I think combining it with what we do,
Yeah.
because they don't include actual bus
That's
routes. I mean, they'll give you a mailbox. but-
Those two departments work
Yeah.
very, very well together.
And I have that noted from before.
So are we still on the comment section?
Since it took 8 minutes, yeah, for you to speak up, yeah.
Yeah, well, so first off, part of me really likes the idea of having the freshmen up here, honestly. I mean, it's one of those things where it's really difficult in my position to have onus over them and have them part of the building, but not really having them transfer back and forth in the winter. It's not the most ideal scenario, and I understand that. We do have capacity up here. It would be better for our resources as a district. There are probably 4 main things that I would worry about, though. Number 1 would be programs at the high school. We have space right now, especially our CT program, as much as we're growing. if this happens, we're gonna be reducing a lot of their classroom size and a lot of their teach space. That being said, it depends on what contracts we have with some of these organizations like ROTC and things like that, whether we have to supply them with the amount of buildings that they have or areas that they occupy right now. Something else that worries me is PE when we're talking about programs. I don't have that much gym space up here. If I've got 5 teachers teaching PE classes, I'm not sure where to put them. If I can't use the freshman campus gyms, that's kind of a problem for us. I mean, we can work around that. It's great in the summer and in the fall and in the spring, but in the winter, we can't go outside. We're all stuck indoors, and it makes it kind of a nightmare as far as managing 5 classrooms at the same time, which limits my scheduling, which kind of limits my staffing at that point. Our fine arts is a big one. I know band is going to be really affected with that, probably not at my level, but it will be at the 8th grade, 7th grade, and 6th grade. And then the 5th grade is another situation where we might have roaming teachers again like we had in the past, where they would have 3 or 4 buildings they were in charge of at the elementaries, and they would go to that every single day and do band at that point. We don't want to lose our 5th grade band. We really don't. Our band is absolutely phenomenal, and it's that way because we have great teachers and we have great expectations, and we do it at 5th grade. We started at 5th grade. That's a big deal for us. And I think it's a big deal for all of us in the district. Another worry for me is culture. I saw SELA do this a couple years ago when they brought back in their alternative program and they brought back in their 9th graders. In calling some of the teachers over there and finding out how that process went, they said it was a big culture shock. It took 5 to 8 years for them to adapt to not having the facilities that they had prior to. And I know it sounds like a little thing and they'll get over it, but it is a difficult situation when we have this much room up here and we have capacity, and if our wireless internet doesn't work very well, it's nice to be able to jump into a hardwired lab that we know is going to work no matter what, that our teachers can rely on. Those would all be gone in this kind of a situation because we would have to use those as teaching environments and just space that we need. Let's see, what were my other ones? The culture one was big, the programs. I worry also if we are sharing, if we have 4 or 5 classrooms that we can utilize at the freshman campus, I'm not sure what programs we can run down there to have kids walk back and forth still. So, I mean, it'd be great if they could all come up and we could all stay in this building and I could have control of that, because we do have a lot more control if they're all here and they're not walking back and forth all period. It just makes it more difficult. The 4th one was mainly just growth. I see all the growth that we've got in the district. I know the melding pot where they all come is the middle school, and I get that, and this would alleviate a lot of stress for them. But that doesn't mean 5 or 6 years down the road, I'm not going to need more room up here. And the idea of having a CTE building is fantastic, but I do know that those specs are really old when we priced that out a while ago, and they also didn't incorporate heating, air conditioning, and a lot of the things that we would have to have, bathrooms, you know, all that stuff that would be encompassed in that. I worry that we would have to turn a library into some classrooms, which is totally possible, but it just worries me as far as growth goes, looking at those certain things.
You're looking at me.
No, I'm looking because I don't wanna, because I'm ready to speak, but,
Okay,
just
well,
go ahead.
having gone through 2, 3 boundary redistricting and that kind of thing, I'm personally concerned about our M&O levy in February. And the environment it will or may create amongst our constituents and patrons to throw the district into this kind of turmoil, for lack of a better term, at this point. I'm just thinking about the political part of it and how we address those folks that voted us in up here so you can point your fingers at us when we do something bad. I've sat through a couple of those. I really am not real fond of the idea of sitting through another one real soon. I mean, if the rest of the board and administration and staff get on board and want to do it, then obviously I'm going to support it and try to defend myself out there in the public, but not up here. But that is a major concern to me. I think a lot of these things are doable, but it's what's the repercussion gonna be if we go ahead at this point? And I'm not so sure I wanna fight that battle.
What are our options? We can make it through this year, and maybe next year without doing anything, but we have to either pass a bond levy and build, or we have to look at plan like.
You start adding portables.
Start adding
You start
portables.
adding
Well,
portables.
to me, that's a waste of $150,000.
Yeah, it is.
Well, okay, this is my view, this moment in time. This sheet and the discussion so far has not led me to believe at this point that we should stop pursuing page number 1, okay? That doesn't mean that that's the route I think we ought to go, but I think it deserves some more study. And I think we should continue to examine those things. I respect the voices in the room a great deal, and I also to Mr. Meyer's point, I think that the M&O levy in February, irrespective of what we do with this, is going to be a challenge. And maybe adding this to the plate makes it even a greater challenge.
It goes from, yeah, it goes from being a challenge to a fatality.
Right, could very well be. I know that when, what I will call page 1 of the page 1 versus page 2 being the administration, page 2 being administration's recommendation, and then page 1 being the other. When I was first hearing about this at first glance, I felt like next school year would be a little bit too difficult to pull off and do it right if we were to move in this kind of a direction. I was originally thinking that this would be something that comes on board in the 1920 school year, not necessarily the 18-19 school year. That's just where I'm sitting right now today. But at the same time, we have some needs. We have needs for next school year that we need to address right now. So that's just where I stand right now. I mean, I appreciate that this is, there are going to be, if we were to move into this direction, the additional considerations are there. They're not to be minimized, but I also don't view it as insurmountable either. And I certainly don't think that they're insurmountable if, just again, at first blush, being that if this were to be incorporated in the 1920 school year. That's just my view right now, but I don't think that tonight's meeting was necessarily designed to say, yes, this is what we're gonna do. It's more of the, okay, what is the route moving from today through, you know, maybe the end of January to make a decision with all of those things in place. And you know, I think that this has been talked about, that the next step is to develop this further, is what is rebounding to 7 elementary attendance areas look like?
Well, if we're gonna progress,
And
we'll do that.
starting to get some, and starting to look at what are the real costs associated with these additional considerations. I mean, that's the other part is that, you know, administration's recommendation is a price tag of approximately $500,000 maybe a little bit more. Obviously, this proposal with a CTE building that has what it needs to have is going to be more, but then, and I could be speaking way out of turn, but the page 1 proposal has a lot more longevity to it than the page 2 proposal. So, I mean, if we're gonna move forward, the two things that this board member needs to really take into consideration, in addition to the rest of the feedback, is what are the real costs associated with this?
Well, what I had in mind after this meeting, and if it doesn't go this way, that's fine, but I thought we would take these additional considerations and address them if we pick 5 or 6 points for the next discussion, and just see what they look like. And before I forget, thank you for your input. I'm not made up on this. I have like some really good arguments for it. I can shoot this down in a minute and a half too. It's easy to pick apart, but I think it's worth giving it a run. So anyway, I think maybe if we took a couple of items that we can look at now, you know, because we won't have all the information. But, you know, I think maybe having a harder look at item 9 would be worthwhile, to see if we can get a closer number on that, since that's part of the equation, and how long that might last. I think item 7 needs a good look.
10's a big one.
10's a big one, but can it be done now? or
I
do we need
think
more?
it needs to be done. I think
Okay.
you need, before you go forward, you need to see how many people have to move to a different
Well,
boundary area.
Sure.
So that's 2 and.
That's huge.
That's 2 and 10.
2 and 10, those are pretty much the same. So you think we should just look at that?
Well, we can look at, we'll have some things going on. It may take a while to get that. I'm gonna just have to order
Okay,
it, yeah.
yeah, okay. So if we look at maybe, I mean, I would combine 2 and 10,
Yeah,
right? So just call it 210. And then maybe if we looked at 2, 4, 7, 9,
sure, we can do that.
is that doable?
Yeah, do that. No problem.
Simplifying it for this little country kid, just, you know, I see this, we gotta place these dominoes,
Yeah.
so that if one of them falls over, the whole damn structure doesn't go to heck in a handbasket, you know? And that's not gonna be easy.
So if I can, it seems like you guys want me to get that, we'll get it. I think that'll be great, we'll get more information. One of the things I do have to just make a statement if I can. One of my jobs is to try to ensure the financial health of the district. And it's gonna be difficult, because number one, we've completely changed the way schools are funded. And there is nobody doing any CFO work in Washington who knows how much revenue their district's gonna have next year, including ours, and ours is a good one. She does not know how much revenue we're gonna have. She's trying to find everything out she can. That's a scary thing as she's trying to start the budget for next year. The other thing is, we're gonna go from $2.64 in a local levy to $1.50. That's the good news. The bad news is, the state levy is gonna go from $1.70 to $2.98 maybe? So that's $1.28 more. So the people are gonna see the bottom line on their tax form is gonna go up for schools. And it's gonna go down for West Valley schools, but it's gonna go up for state schools.
See, and they won't see
They
it
don't,
separated.
they just see
out. They
the
don't see
total,
that.
you know what I mean?
Which is, I mean, to be a doomsdayer and to say we shouldn't
Yeah.
do this, I think the M&O levy is in danger whether we do anything or not.
Could be, but I've got ideas and I've got some things that need to be explained and what we're gonna do and all that stuff. And Angela and I have also talked about ways we might be able to even reduce the $1.50, which there's some things that we're thinking of. So we wanna try to do everything we can locally to mitigate that total impact to the taxpayer. But regardless of what we do, it's gonna be a challenge, it's gonna be an uphill climb. We right now get $6.9 million for our levy. Next year, if our levy passes, we get $3.8 million for 4 years. So we wanna pass the levy, because then we wanna run a bond issue again. I really do think, I mean, I'm an eternal optimist, you guys know that. I think if we run a bond issue for 1 or 2 elementary schools, we'll be fine. I think we'll be okay. Now, does that mean it's for sure it's gonna pass? No, we've run bond issues all over the place. But if we run a bond issue for a new Summit View, it'll pass. If we run one for a new Apple Valley, it might pass. If we run it for both of them, yeah, it might pass for both. But that would be in 2019. So we're gonna have this window from 19 to 2022, if we do a 4-year levy, where we're gonna have a chance to pass a couple bonds in there from 19 to 22. And that's what we tried to do from 14 to 18. We ran one in 15, we ran one in 17.
And we
They
could be
both
having
failed.
the same conversation with 8 portables sitting out there.
And we'll get to the point, if we don't pass a bond, where we're just gonna have to do that. And I don't like it any more than anybody else, but we have to be able to house our students too. So that's the only thing I worry about. I worry about that. Ben, I appreciate your points. I think one of the big things Ben talked about too is culture. Establishing a culture in a high school, I did that job for 11 years. You work hard to establish a culture. They're doing a lot of things as a staff, sending people to things to learn about making a better culture. Throwing a 9th grade in here is gonna impact that. Would it make it impossible? No, they're a good team, but it just makes it different.
Yet,
So,
yet,
anyway,
But the 9th grade are already in the high school in a way. When you talk about SELA, when you put your alternative school into your high school, that's a major change. And ours, our kids are already at the high school for part of the day.
yeah, coming
So
down.
it's not as
here.
much of a culture shock as SELA.
in terms of the timeline, because I think we could debate this for a while, and it's not gonna get us, it's really not gonna get us anywhere tonight, because we're not gonna solve this problem tonight. I think that the way I look at it is we as a board, before we go to winter break, really have to have a picture of if whether this is viable or not. And then if it is viable, and this is a route that we want to go down, then in January, we would see community input in the month of January, and then at the end of January, we would make our decision. But if page 1, as I'm referring to it, is not viable, then I think we go back to, I think we go back to this,
What we can do, yeah.
or I think again, page 2, the administration's recommendation would then be something that we have to examine and possibly move forward on. I just, as to page 2, the biggest, I still want to pursue page 1. The administration's recommendation, the losing of a library in an elementary school, I just cannot get my head wrapped around that. And that's probably the thing that I like least about this. If we need to move more, well, or if we need to move more kids out of Apple Valley to other schools that have capacity, then yeah, even though we're trying to impact fewer kids, then maybe we need to shift more kids out of Apple Valley. But that's of administration's recommendation. That's probably the thing that I find least desirable.
Exactly.
All right.
I'm the portables that I don't like either, but I get it. All right.
Good discussion.
Okay.